There are moments in life when everything looks normal on the surface, yet something inside us feels off. We say yes when we want to say no. We follow others when our instincts whisper a different truth. We act, speak, or even think in ways that don't fully belong to us. Why? Because control doesn't always wear chains. Sometimes it wears a smile. Pause for a second. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost something? Your peace, your clarity, your direction? That's not coincidence. It's the quiet force of manipulation. It's subtle. It hides behind guilt, praise, fear, or silence. It doesn't need to shout. It just waits until you doubt yourself. Think about how often people shape your choices without touching you. A coworker uses flattery. A friend uses guilt. A stranger's comment online ruins your whole day. And what about that one moment? You knew you should have spoken your truth, but instead, you stayed silent. That wasn't just discomfort. That was the moment your will bent under someone else's. Here's a simple example. You're standing in a group, and everyone agrees on something you don't believe in. You laugh along. You nod. You stay quiet. Why? Not because you changed your mind, but because you didn't want to be judged. That's how control creeps in, not with force, but with fear. Welcome to Book Boost. This channel is your safe ground for deep thought and self-mastery. If this voice stirs something in you, if you want to understand yourself better, protect your mind, and live with quiet strength, then like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Book Boost. And please, drop down your one thought on believe in yourself in the comments. Your voice matters here, because this isn't just about avoiding manipulation. It's about learning how to see it, and more importantly, how to rise above it. Through the wisdom of the Stoics, we'll uncover truths the world hides in plain sight. The chains you can't see are the hardest to break, but once you do, no one will ever hold your mind again. The fortress within, building mental boundaries through reason. There comes a time in every thinking person's life when they must ask, who truly owns my mind? And though we like to believe the answer is always me, the reality is often far from it. Our minds, when left unguarded, become soft clay in the hands of others. A comment here, a glance there, a social expectation silently pressing down on us, and we shift. We mold. We surrender. Not because we are weak, but because we have never been taught to protect the inner fortress, the one place that should remain untouched by outside influence. The Stoics believe that our reason is that fortress. It is not made of stone or iron, but of clarity, judgment, and calm understanding. It doesn't shout. It doesn't react. It stands quietly, observing the world as it is, not as others want us to see it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins not with fighting others, but with defending that quiet space inside your own soul. Let's be honest. Most of us walk through life open like a house without doors. Anyone can walk in, with opinions, expectations, insults, flattery, and we let them. We let their judgments sit on our minds like guests who never asked for permission. Over time, we no longer know which thoughts are ours and which were planted by others. The Stoic way of life teaches us not to close our hearts to the world, but to create a threshold, a clear line where the outside ends and the inner self begins. Think about how easy it is to lose your peace. One small insult from someone you barely know can live in your mind for days. One sarcastic laugh in a room full of people can shake your confidence. But if that one moment has the power to pull you off your path, then you were never walking it firmly. What the Stoics remind us is this: if your peace depends on the silence of others, you are already in chains. Your peace must live inside you, unmoved, untouched, unshaken. Now, how do we build that mental boundary? We begin with awareness. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Every time you feel your emotions being pulled by someone's words or actions, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If it isn't, release it. That is the first brick in the wall. Control is an illusion that others try to place over you. But the moment you begin examining your reactions, questioning them, calming them, choosing them, you start reclaiming your freedom. You no longer jump when someone pulls the strings. You respond only when your reason calls you forward. And that is power, the kind no one can take from you. We must not mistake silence for submission, nor agreement for understanding. Many times, people stay quiet in rooms not because they agree, but because they are tired of conflict, afraid of rejection, or uncertain in themselves. A Stoic stays quiet when it is wise, not when it is fearful. That difference is everything. To guard your mind is to walk into any room knowing that your values won't tremble just because the voices around you are loud. So what do we do when manipulation comes softly, not as a threat, but as kindness, attention, praise? We smile. We acknowledge. But we do not let it pass the gate unless it aligns with our reason. The Stoic never builds walls to shut the world out, but they build gates to decide who or what may come in. The fortress is not a prison. It is a place of peace. And that peace must be protected, not through anger, not through control of others, but through control of the self. To say no calmly, to walk away without explanation, to disagree without fear. These are the signs of an inner fortress. Not because we enjoy conflict, but because we value truth over approval. The Stoic path demands that we stop trading our freedom for comfort. In a world where manipulation wears many masks, the greatest protection is not suspicion but clarity. When your principles are defined, when your values are firm, when your actions are led by reason and not by impulse, no one can move you unless you allow it. And why would you? Why would you let someone else steer a ship they didn't build on waters they don't sail? Think of your mind like a quiet temple. Not everyone deserves entry. Not every voice deserves to echo inside its walls. You decide what stays. You decide what goes. You decide what matters. And when you live like that, with self-control, with awareness, with inner discipline, you are no longer at the mercy of people or their games. You are free, not because they let you go, but because you were never holding on. Let us walk forward remembering this. To build a fortress within is not to isolate, but to protect the deepest part of ourselves from being molded by others. This is the strength the Stoics lived by. Not loud, not aggressive, but calm, rooted, and unshakable. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to please the world to find peace. You only need to guard the gate of your mind, and let reason be the keeper. The art of saying no, detachment, discipline, and the courage to resist. To live free is not to live without rules. It is to live without the invisible strings others try to pull. And often, those strings are tugged by expectations, obligations, and fears we've quietly accepted without question. If we are to become strong in mind and spirit, we must learn the ancient and forgotten art of saying no. A Stoic does not bend with every breeze of approval or disapproval. He stands still in what is right, not in what is popular. But standing still takes practice. It takes strength to disappoint someone when you know your truth must be honored. It takes courage to say no when everything around you says, just agree. That's not rebellion. That's freedom. We live in a world that confuses kindness with submission. People expect a yes from us because we've given it too freely. We say yes to preserve peace. Yes to avoid conflict. Yes to seem helpful. But every yes spoken in fear is a tiny betrayal of who we are. And over time, these small betrayals gather weight. They become chains that slowly pull us away from ourselves. A Stoic does not say no to be harsh, but to be true. And that truth begins by being honest with oneself. Ask, do I really want this? Do I believe in this? Is this aligned with my principles? And if the answer is no, then that answer must be spoken with clarity, not anger, not guilt, just honesty. Seneca once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that. What use is freedom if we give away our time, energy, or peace at the first sign of pressure? The discipline of saying no is not about rejecting others. It is about not rejecting your own values. Every time we say no with purpose, we are saying yes to our deeper self. Look at your day. How many decisions do you make out of pressure, not choice? We attend meetings we don't believe in. We help people who only take. We say words we don't mean just to keep someone else comfortable. This is not service. This is slavery of the mind. And it must end. But detachment is not coldness. A Stoic does not cut ties recklessly. Instead, he steps back to see the whole picture. He knows that being available to everyone means being available to no one, especially to himself. Detachment is the quiet power of choosing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Simple, yet so rarely followed. We forget how sacred our voice is. When we give it to lies, we empty it of power. When we give it to every demand, we make it ordinary. But when we protect it, use it with intention, and let it serve only what is noble, we grow unshakable. Sometimes, saying no will cost you relationships. It may bring silence. It may bring judgment. But those losses are not losses. They are lessons. They teach you who respects your boundaries, and who only stayed because you had none. The discomfort is real, but temporary. The peace that follows is lasting. We must understand, every decision is a direction. When you say yes to something unworthy, you say no to something important. Perhaps your rest, your dream, your integrity. A Stoic asks, am I walking toward my values or away from them? That one question can guide 1,000 choices. The world rewards the agreeable, but greatness is never born in agreement. It is born in stillness, in clarity, in resistance. It is born when a man knows what matters to him and protects it even when it's unpopular. That kind of man cannot be moved by bribes, praise, or fear. He is not stubborn. He is principled. There will be times when you hesitate, when no catches in your throat. That is when you must remember who you are and who you are trying to become. The person who wants to be liked will bend. The person who wants to be respected will rise. The Stoic does not chase approval. He chases virtue. And when virtue is the goal, the rest fades into noise. Resisting what pulls you away from yourself is not selfish. It is sacred. Your time is not cheap. Your energy is not infinite. Your life is not for rent. It is yours. And the more you live by that truth, the more the world will know where you stand. Let others take the easy road. Let others nod and smile when they want to scream. Let others trade their peace for comfort. But not you. You are learning to say no, not with hate, not with pride, but with quiet power. You are learning to stand in your truth and speak from it. And in doing so, you become untouchable. To walk the Stoic path is to be calm in chaos, firm in pressure, and free in the face of control. You owe no one your surrender. You owe everyone your honesty. And above all, you owe yourself your loyalty. The art of saying no is not the art of separation. It is the art of protection, of guarding the fire within so it may burn longer, brighter, and truer than before. Power over the self. 10 Stoic lessons to break free from manipulation. The world outside is loud, persuasive, and always moving. But the real battle, the quiet, invisible one, happens within. It's not always about people trying to control us. Sometimes it's about us handing over that control without even knowing. That's where Stoicism comes in. Not as a shield to block others, but as a mirror that shows us how to return to our own mind. When you hold your ground, in your thoughts, your emotions, and your choices, no one can steer your ship without your hand on the wheel. The first lesson is simple but powerful. Know what you control. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, some things are in our control and others not. Most people suffer because they try to control what isn't theirs, other people's opinions, outcomes, moods, praise. Once you know what's truly yours, your thoughts, your reactions, your actions, you begin to stand on solid ground. And on solid ground, you can't be pushed as easily. The second lesson is this: silence is strength. In today's world, people feel pressured to react, to respond, to speak even when they have nothing to say. But the Stoic trains himself to pause, not out of fear, but out of discipline. When someone tries to provoke you, manipulate you, or guilt you, silence gives you space. And in that space, clarity grows. That is how you choose your response, instead of being dragged by your emotions. Third, detach from the outcome. The manipulator always tries to hook you with a result. Do this, and you'll get that. But the Stoic does his duty without clinging to rewards or fearing failure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. Be indifferent to what makes no difference. When you act without fear or hope of what others promise, their power over you fades. Fourth, train your emotions. Most people think feelings are like weather. They just happen. But the Stoics knew emotions can be shaped. Anger, fear, guilt. These are tools in the manipulator's hand. But the calm mind, the trained mind, sees them rise and lets them pass. Don't fight your emotions. Observe them. Understand them. The more you see them clearly, the less control they have over you. Fifth, build your character like a fortress. People can take your money, your reputation, even your comfort, but they cannot take your integrity unless you hand it to them. Character is not built when life is easy. It's shaped when you are tested. And if you are surrounded by those who try to control or deceive, take that as your training ground. Each test is a chance to prove to yourself that you cannot be bought or bent. Sixth, practice saying no, calmly, firmly, without guilt. Many people give in because they don't want to be disliked. But a Stoic understands, your peace is more valuable than someone else's approval. If you say yes to everything, you are saying no to your own priorities. Saying no is not harsh. It is honest, and it draws a line that others learn to respect. Seventh, live according to nature, not opinion. The Stoics often spoke of living in agreement with nature, which means living in line with reason, virtue, and purpose. The world wants you to chase trends, titles, likes, applause. But all of that is outside your nature. Your nature is to think clearly, act justly, and remain steady. When you live by that, external pressure loses its power. You become unshakable, not because you're cold, but because you're rooted. Eighth, examine your desires. The manipulator often works not through threats, but through your desires. They promise what you crave, attention, success, love, acceptance, and you follow. But ask yourself, are these desires your own, or were they planted? Seneca warned that we suffer more from imagination than reality. What you think you need might be the very thing that keeps you chained. True freedom begins when you reduce your unnecessary wants. Ninth, accept discomfort. If you are addicted to comfort, you are easy to control. People will offer you ease, pleasure, distraction, and then take your freedom in return. But if you train yourself to embrace discomfort, to sit with boredom, to go without, you become untouchable. A Stoic sees luxury not as success, but as weakness in disguise. Strength is built in the fire, not in the warmth. 10th, and most important, remember your mortality. Memento mori, remember you must die. This is not morbid. This is powerful. When you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on games, lies, and masks. You stop letting others steer your ship. Every time you say no to manipulation, you say yes to your life. You say yes to living as a free, conscious, awake being. The Stoics were not just thinkers, they were warriors of the soul. They trained not with swords, but with thoughts. Not to fight others, but to master themselves. And in doing so, they became immune to manipulation. Not because they were invincible, but because they understood this truth. No one can control a mind that chooses its own thoughts. These 10 lessons are not for knowing. They are for living. Not once, but every day. Because the moment you forget who you are, the world will gladly assign you a role. But the moment you remember, truly remember, you cannot be moved. Not by praise, not by fear, not by lies. You become free. And that, above all, is the Stoics' quiet rebellion.